there this spring. We actually had Trey Coleman, and we moved Princeton Fant from tight end to running back just to give us 4. We've brought in Jeremy Banks, and Madri London's a grad transfer, so it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out with these guys. I know they're working hard, but I think we'll probably need all of them before the year's over with.
All right, thank you, Coach Pruitt, for your time.
Somebody asked him about an Alabama one.
Jeremy Pruitt's first appearance as a head coach coming here today in Atlanta. You just heard him for the last 20 to 25 minutes. We will discuss what the new Tennessee head football coach ultimately had to say and the messages he ultimately tried to deliver as we get.
Welcome back to SEC Now, 2018 SEC Kickoff, presented by Regions Bank.
Two coaches have found their way to the podium. 2 more to come, including that Saban guy. You know, it's interesting when it's Alabama Day. And every year of the 4 days that Alabama comes, whatever that day is, it's just considered Alabama Day. He will get to the podium at 1:30. We just heard from Jeremy Pruitt. And one of the topics of conversation, guys, that we had going in was whether or not Jeremy Pruitt might be asked about a certain quote from a certain former Georgia quarterback. Of course, Aaron Murray was at Georgia. Jeremy Pruitt was too, though they were not there at the same time. But Murray did say when he was at Georgia, the way he acted, the way he treated Coach Richt, I thought was poor. He wasn't as respectful as I thought a defensive coordinator should be to a head coach. That's my thing with authority. He went on to suggest that he didn't think Pruitt essentially had the personality to be a head coach, to allow others to do jobs that he hires them to do to some degree. And Paul, we still don't know what his reaction to that might be if somebody had asked him.
Yeah, and I have sat here with you in the past and been critical of this group for not asking that question. However, it was asked at an earlier get-together. For people at home, this is not the only time these coaches are asked questions. They go through internet rooms, radio rooms, and he addressed it very firmly in there. He was asked it partially here. Someone asked about Mark Richt. I don't know why the reporter just didn't ask the question that everyone wanted answered, but then again, I don't know anything about sitting out there. Only did that for 30 years. And I believe that it would have been refreshing. By the way, that I don't want to bury the lead. The lead is that Jeremy Pruitt killed it in this room. For a guy that most of us have never seen as exuding a lot of charisma. Right. He was brilliant. He was refreshingly honest. We saw a minute ago what Philip Fulmer saw in the interview process.
And so many times over the last 6 months, like how many things have happened for Tennessee in the last 6 months that have been positive? I mean, I honestly can't think of anything.
Basketball team made a nice run.
Okay, besides that, I'm talking football. Exclusive to football. They did lose to Loyola Chicago, though, and killed my bracket.
Titans almost got to the Super Bowl.
There's just not a lot of things over the last 6 months that have surrounded the Volunteers football program that have really come out looking all that good. The coaching search was a disaster. Jeremy Pruitt was hired, but it never felt like he was their first choice, even though he might have been top 10 for the fans. I think this was the first time where they got to control the narrative. They got to say, you know what, this is what we actually have. We might not be stocked in talent, but we're making progress. Wow. And I really appreciated his candor and the optimism he displayed, because it just hasn't been optimistic in Knoxville in so long. And I'm hoping for their fans that that was a sign of things to come, that it's moving in the right direction. They have some pieces in place. They just need more of those pieces.
I think if they had hired him first, it would have been a good hire, regardless, if you back that up. But to address Aaron's comments, because I think it needs to be addressed a little bit. The stories that I have heard and that some of y'all have heard that came out of Athens that are true, that are from coaches that were a part of the staff. Some of the things that Jeremy Pruitt did to Coach Richt some coaches would tell you is the most disrespectful thing they've ever heard, the most crazy thing that they've ever heard. So I'll be curious to watch Jeremy Pruitt as he evolves with his relationship with Philip Fulmer, because Jeremy Pruitt did a great job when he was with Nick Saban because he knew where he stood.
Right.
He did a good job with Jimbo Fisher. They let you know where you're standing.
Yeah, the hierarchy was clear.
The hierarchy was very clear. Now, how does he evolve as a head coach? Because he put on a good show. Like, he definitely showed you what he has. I want to see if he continues to treat people in the correct manner, if he respects authority. Because, to be honest, the stories we've all heard the same stories.
Yeah.
It was pretty bad, and it was pretty disrespectful. So that's what I'm interested to see, the level of power.
I like Aaron Murray. I do. I like Aaron Murray a lot, and quarterbacks have a certain fraternity, but I felt in reading his comments that they were personal and they were unnecessary. And I understand that things didn't go well when he was the coordinator with Georgia. There was a friction there, and you even heard him describe it when asked indirectly about the question. He goes, well, I came from Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban, and they're tough, and this is the way they do things. And, Mark Richt was more Bobby Bowden and Lovey Up, a player's coach. He approached it and said that we just clashed from personality standpoint. But nothing that happened at Georgia is going to change, or it's going to negatively impact the coach that Jeremy Pruitt's going to be. He's a head coach now.
Yeah,
he doesn't
what
have
he's
to
always
answer.
wanted,
He doesn't
right?
have to answer
He's there.
to anybody.
Yeah.
The buck stops with him, and it's a completely different situation from the Georgia situation.
The buck does stop with you as a coach, but you have to answer to ADs. You have to answer to presidents. And if
True.
it's not
and you
your
have to
way,
answer to alumni.
Yeah,
that's
it's
true.
And alumni and all these. You have to be able to do that, and you have to be able to acquiesce to people. And if you've shown in the past that you think it should be your way or the highway, and you can disrespect people or treat people in a bad way, you do that to Philip Fulmer, or you do that to a president or a big-time booster, that's a different animal.
You don't want enemies. Obviously you don't want enemies, but you want to know what cures all things? Winning.
Yep.
And if he wins, it's not going to matter what happened to Georgia or Florida State or Alabama. He's a head coach now. He has a clean slate, I think, and that's how we should evaluate him, because nowhere he's been before that is going to define what he's going to be in the next few years.
David, I think your concerns are valid, and the stories were just downright ugly. But I think he has moved on from there in my estimation, and I think what he is trying to do, and what he did today, was to draw a line of demarcation between what was and what is and what is going to be. Let's just be perfectly frank. I mean, he was honest and refreshing. A year ago, Butch Jones was disingenuous, thin-skinned. He was a pathetic carny barker, and he's now gone, and Tennessee fans want to see a real coach up there, and they have a real coach, and they also have a real athletic director, the man who should have been hired in the first place, who was passed over in spite of everything Philip Fulmer has done for this university. I think for the first time in a long time, the University of Tennessee is back on the right track.
We got you fired up for the first time. We finally got you a little bit.
We saw the alum coming out.
That's what I'm talking about. We saw something a little different there, Paul.
Was there some of that? Was there a little bit of alum in that?
There's something in there.
Right there. I mean, in spite of what everyone likes to say, I went to this university. I have a degree from this university. I'm proud of this university, and I wanted to stop falling all over itself, stop making mistakes at the president's level, the chancellor's level, the AD's level, and the head football coach's level. This is a great program, but a lot of young people don't know Tennessee as a football power. All they know it is as a punching bag.
Well, and that's an interesting topic, because I think Pruitt, he talked about the power of the T. And you got 10 years now where, yes, I understand the power of the T back in the day was really good, but it's been a hot minute now. And I don't think kids do realize the power of the T. I think the guys that are older like us that understand that remember the good old days, but they got to find a way to find some relevancy. And I got news for you. It ain't going to be this year. It's not going to be this year. You can talk about the product on the field.
You're right.
They're going 2-6 or 3-5 out the gates. Look at their schedule. That's going to happen.
It's
so
challenging.
when that kind of stuff happens, we're going to find out a lot about Pruitt. We're going to find out a lot about how he handles adverse situations. And that to me is going to be interesting to find out if everybody can stay on board and stay rowing in the same direction.
I think Paul and other alums are certainly excited about this hire. He gave us no reason to not be excited about this hire if you're a fan of Tennessee. And what we saw here, as you all alluded to, is likely a big part of the reason the athletic director, Philip Fulmer, decided to hire him. Fulmer speaking on his relationship with Jeremy Pruitt.
If you told me that I was going to be the head coach at Tennessee and I could choose who the athletic director was going to be, I would choose Coach Fulmer. Coach Fulmer was a player there. He was an assistant coach. He's a championship head coach at Tennessee. So all the things that helped make Tennessee great, he knows what it took to get there. when there was a bump in the road, he probably knows the things that can help steer me away from it. I'm thankful that I have an opportunity of, hey, if I have some questions, because I'm going to tell you something. Whatever you do, I talk about football all the time being a developmental game. It's the same thing, same way for coaches. I'm sure 10 years from